It's a new level. It's a new level. There's an overflow. Abundance of blessings. I'm taking over.
Can you see beneath the mask? No. Do you see the pain that's concealed? Afraid to reveal how I truly feel. Day in, day out, I strive to appear strong, confident, and in control. But in reality, there's a war raging within my soul. So many times you look and only see the surface. But who will take the time to look beyond and see my true colors? Who will take the time to caress my weaknesses and partake of the gift shared in my presence? I see the pain beneath the mask of others in the world today. How, you may ask? I see what once was reflected in me. Many are starving from that pain we all crave. Acceptance, love, and affection. Often the world offers exactly the opposite. Apathy, hate, and rejection. But there is a place where the mask can be removed. A place where you can be free. Are you brave enough to unveil and allow others to see beneath the mask? Well, today is the day, and this is the place, and this is the time, and this is the space where you're going to be able to unveil, reveal, begin, or continue the journey to healing. Healing from the effects of unhealthy boundaries. Healing from the effects of toxic relationships, personal, professional, or otherwise. Healing from the effects of our environment and upbringing. But the basis of all of that healing, how you show up or don't show up in the relationships in your life, is based on how you're able to love you. We don't intentionally get into unhealthy relationships or have toxic boundaries in our lives. A lot of that stems from something back in our childhood. Everything begins and ends within. Our relationships, we pattern more often than not what we see growing up. How we deal with conflict, how we deal with pain, how we show up, it all goes back to upbringing. How we were raised. Being able to identify the boundaries that may have been crossed in your life begins with understanding who you are. There was a time I didn't know who I was. I'm going to take you on a brief journey before we get into these booklets that helps you to identify the different types. But I didn't know who I was because before I even understood what a boundary was, or what having a voice was, or having taken up space was, it was taken from me. It was silenced for me. I thought it was normal. You see, at the age of 6, people in my family started violating me. You know, family is supposed to represent safety, security, provision, comfort, guidance. But what family represented to me was pain, silence, Being seen but not heard, physically invisible. Keeping what goes on in the house in the house. Not talking about mental health challenges. I didn't even know what that was. Not talking about what it meant to get touched inappropriately. Being told that I had to do what an adult said because they were an adult. So those boundaries were crossed at a very young age. And there were multiple boundaries, as we're going to be getting into today. But the journey that I'm taking you on, that journey began in darkness, it began in pain, but it is now and it will continue to move forward in victory. Not just for me, but for you, Marcia, you, Rochelle, you, Lizania, you, each and every one of you. Because each and every one of us is going through a battle. We're going through one, just coming out of one, or preparing to go into another. But you know what saved me? My Abba Father. I had a knowledge of Him, but until I had an experience with Him, an encounter with Him, I walked through 32 years of my life wearing a mask. Afraid to be who He created me to be. Afraid to take up space. Afraid to share my voice. Afraid to share my love, my joy, my peace. Because I was told, if you tell anyone, they're not going to believe you. If you tell anyone, I'm going to hurt your aunt. I'm going to hurt your grandmother. So I learned at a very early age to put on a mask of strength. But on the inside, I was withering away. I was bound in physical exchange. And I walked through 33 years of my life bound. Because I didn't know that I had a right to have boundaries. So, where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line? I drew the line the day that I was on my fifth failed suicide. I drew the line when, after serving my country, they told me I couldn't serve anymore. And they labeled me with 5 mental health diagnoses. I drew the line when that resiliency that we all have within started to rise up and said, no more. I drew the line when I looked at my daughter who was looking at me. I drew the line when I looked at her father and knew that I could no longer contain her. Allowing her to see me be abused. Physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, sexually. I took a stand. And I took a stand so that I could be here today before you. To help you take a stand in whatever area you need to take a stand. So if you want to take notes, you can take notes on page 11. We're not going to go through this entire book because this is meant to be a resource. Everything that you hear here today is meant to get you to start reflecting. It's meant to get you to start being more aware of the things that maybe you've been blinded to. It's to get you maybe to become reacquainted in your relationship with your Abba, your Creator, whoever you serve. It's to give you the tools to help you navigate that awkward, tumultuous time. Because when you're in crisis, you can't think straight. So, we've got some helpful definitions. There's boundaries, unhealthy boundaries, healthy boundaries, physical, emotional, sexual, material, Time boundaries, friendship and relationship boundaries. That's at the front definitions. I'm not going to read them all to you. You guys will read. These are just helpful definitions. So I'm going to key in on a couple of areas. We're going to talk about what are the four most common personal boundaries. They're emotional. That's on page 3, and that protects your emotional well-being. There's physical. That protects your physical space. There's sexual, that protects your needs and safety sexually. And then there's workforce, which protects your ability to work without intrusive actions or behaviors. From those four alone, how many of you, by a show of hands, have had challenges in those areas in your life? More often than not, when we are triggered by the boundaries, our personal boundaries that are important to us, it's not even about the current situation. It's about a memory that we were triggered back to, that we anchored back to, that reminded us of that situation. Not all the time, sometimes. And that's because we've experienced a trauma. And anybody that's experienced trauma, it impacts you because it makes you less likely to actively defend yourself, your desires, and your personal boundaries, particularly in new situations. By a show of hands, when your boundaries were violated or crossed, did you address it at that time? No. Why not? Fear. Exactly. Fear of what? The most common barriers to setting boundaries is fear of rejection and or abandonment, fear of confrontation and upsetting someone, guilt and shame or not knowing how to. So we're only going to fill in one of these, whatever applies to you on page 4. After hearing what I shared, do any of those barriers that I listed apply to you? In the space provided below, share those experiences. And there's a chart on the following page as a reference. So you can pick either one of those. And you can write it down, you don't have to share it. You know, as you're thinking about that and as you write it down, even just wearing these chains, just for today, I can feel the weight of the boundaries and the barriers of the past. And I can't imagine now that I've been free, that I was walking around for 32 years of my life in bondage in these chains. And how many of you in here today are walking around with these chains, not visible, but invisible, that are preventing you or hindering you from showing up and being who you were created to be? I don't need you to answer, I just want you to think. And I'm going to tell you this, healing is a journey, it's not a destination, it's a process. You know you've come to a healthy place when you're able to talk about your trauma. And there's no pain involved. That there's no tears involved. I can stand before you boldly today and talk about being violated sexually by my uncles, being violated by a service member sexually, being told that I wasn't worthy by my ex-husband, being told that I wasn't enough by people in authority over me. Because it no longer impacts me. It doesn't define who I am. I know who I am in Christ, and I know who God created me to be. And I'm comfortable in the skin that I'm in. when you know you have a healthy boundary. And if anybody violates that, I have no unction about telling them. Because you can tell anybody anything you want to, it's just all in the delivery. I don't have to be nasty, I don't have to be angry, I don't have to be hateful, but I will be firm. You're in my first mistakes. I didn't like what you said, I don't receive it. I understand that your intentions may have been good, but it wasn't intentional, but it still hurt me. There was times I couldn't do that. Good boundaries. The ability to stay true to your sense of self, your spiritual beliefs, and your passions, and the right to change your mind. How many times have you encountered something, you agreed to do something for somebody in your family, and something else came up and you couldn't do it? And they tried to manipulate you and guilt you into doing it anyway. And you did it because you felt bad. And then you were mad at yourself because you let them control you. And then that resentment started stirring up in there. I don't know about you, but I started ignoring phone calls. Because every time I saw that name come across the phone, it was like a ball of rage in my belly. And I started replaying in my mind all the things I could have, should have, would have said. Because my boundary had been violated. Healthy people who desire healthy relationships don't have an issue with boundaries. And many people, when they think about boundaries, they think about being constricted. They think about being controlled. But actually, boundaries free us. Boundaries help cherish and protect relationships because you know what to expect. You know what they're willing to compromise on, what you're willing to compromise on. You know when you've crossed that line and it's time to back up or apologize. But with no boundaries, they destroy relationships. Because people begin to take you for granted, intentionally or unintentionally. They begin to become so familiar with who you are or who you were that they don't see who you're becoming. Familiarity breeds contempt. And it's not always intentional. We were meant to grow and evolve on this earth. Some people are comfortable where they are. They don't want to see you grow. And rather than seeing you grow and cheering you on, they want to keep you around and keep you there. But that's when you have to draw the line. Sexual boundaries. I didn't know what that was. And so when I started engaging in relationships, whatever they said, wait, even if I didn't feel like that, I did it anyway because I didn't want them to be angry with me. I didn't want to lose the relationship, but I lost myself. Time boundaries, which is very important to me because you can get money back. You can get new friends if you lose them. But time is the only commodity that once it's gone, you can't get that back. So time boundaries are very important to me. I determine how much time I want to spend with somebody, how much time I want to use to pour into somebody. And if you don't honor my time, you don't honor and you don't respect it. Once or twice, I'll give you that. If it becomes a pattern, then I've got to reassess how much access I give you into my life. Material boundaries. You have the right to determine how much resources you want to pour into somebody. I mean, monetarily. You know how family is big on this. Well, you got money, you can take care of it. I need help, I'm in trouble. Where were you at when I needed you? I don't mean in a bad way, but seriously. You're not going to guilt me, you're not going to control me into giving you my money. Because I used to do that to my own detriment. I would go into the red in my bank account, helping family members out if that were in need, and it was always an emergency. Because they felt that I always had. But they didn't know the struggles and the sacrifices behind me saying. While trying to maintain my sanity, I'm still pouring out to you. And you take it for granted, and you become feeling like you're entitled to it. You get angry when I no longer do it. Physical boundaries. I'm a touchy-feely person. I love hugging, I love sharing love because connection is hardwired in our DNA. It's hardwired in our DNA to be connected. But I'm very mindful of people's boundaries. I won't miss them before I come. Have you ever had somebody come up in your first space? You don't even know your first time meeting? Yeah. And they're like this. And you look like, and you back up, and you try to back up, and then they come place. That's when you enforce your boundaries. Sometimes you have to put your hand, hey, please, you get a little bit too close. I'm hurt. Thank you. I could go on and on and on and on, but here's some healthy ways to cultivate boundaries. Seek therapy. And I know there's a lot of us that are of the faith, but God created people to help specialize in those areas. I know in my family growing up in the African American community, you talk about therapists, psychiatrists, and psychologists, then they want to shut down. In the Christendom, if you talk about that, they talk about you don't have enough faith, you have some mental health challenges. You have unconfessed sin. You're demonized. I beg to differ, because after you pray, now what? Yes. You go seek therapy. You do journaling. You get out in nature. You call a friend. Yes, you pray, but you pray, you act, and God will meet you. So I'm going to ask you guys to focus in on one area that you want to address your boundary violation in from what you've heard today on page 7. And then I'm going to ask you, why is it important for you to change that boundary now? And then I'd like one volunteer to volunteer to come forward. Not to share that, but just to do something. We'll demonstrate. I don't have any tape. You raised your hand. Come on now, you guys. How are you doing? Come on. If you had a boundary that was crossed that you think about right now, was it a situation that if you're willing, I'd like you to share, as if I was that person, what you want to say to that person, and what that was, and what it meant to you. You guys, come on, honey. Feel better.
Right. At least for 1 second. All you need. You make me feel like I'm not your sister. You make me feel like you don't love me. Take what you said. You're a big sister. And I'm always there for you. I'm always there. Why do you keep cheating me?
Let's give her a round of applause. It may not have seemed hard, but that's challenging. But you know what? If you hide it, you can't heal it. But if you face it, you can reveal it and begin and continue the journey to it. All of the areas and the boundaries in your life have been crossed. That was just one example. And I'm going to close with this. There are some necessary goodbyes you need to make on the journey to creating healthy good boundaries. There may be some people or some situations that come to mind. Boundaries aren't for you. They aren't for the other person. They're for you to feel safe and secure and confident in who you are. We can't control what others believe. We can't control what they feel. Because boundaries weren't meant to control them. Boundaries make it possible for us to hold ourselves together, to hold our heads up, to be confident and bold, and being the eclectic, unique, and fearfully and wonderfully made individuals that God created us to be. So be free. Take off the shackles. Take off the chains. Amen. Loose yourself from the bonds. Thank you for being brave enough and continue on that journey to stay in those boundaries.